Integrations in Plasmic let you work with databases and APIs. For example, you can read or write data against databases like Postgres or other data sources like Airtable and Google Sheets. You can also perform other operations like triggering a Zapier workflow or calling arbitrary generic REST APIs. Say I have this very simple Airtable of tasks with just these two columns, a description, text, and a checkbox for whether it's archived or not. And I want to build a page that lists these out. Back in Plasmic, in the Page Data tab, I can find a section called Data Fetches. And here I can specify some more data to fetch. I'm going to call this Tasks. And the first thing I'll do is I'm going to pick an integration. I don't have any set up yet, so I'm going to create a new Airtable integration. And I'm going to call this my Tasks Airtable. And I'm going through the Airtable consent screen here. So I'll just give it access to my tasks base, and I'll go ahead and pick that here. So now we can work with it. For instance, we can query all the rows from that main tasks Airtable, and I can optionally specify any filters over that data. But let's say I want to just fetch everything. So I'll go ahead and save this, and now I can select this row, and I'm going to make it repeat according to that data that we fetched, the tasks data. So now we have one row per Airtable record, and for each row, I want this text here to actually display the current item's description. And let's say I also want this archived text to only show up conditionally. I'm going to use a dynamic value here as well and say it's only shown if archived is set. So that's reading or fetching data. We can also create or update data, writing back to the data source. So for instance, this button here, let's say we want it to actually do something on click, and we're going to go ahead and on click, we're going to use an integration. So we're going to go ahead and pick that integration that we already created, the tasks Airtable integration. And now we see under operations, more operations are available to us when we're running inside of an interaction. So specifically, we can create and update and delete things. So let's say we wanted to update a specific row in our tasks table, and Airtable ID lets us specify which row we want to update. So for instance, we want to update the row corresponding to the current item, which is available in this variable, the Airtable ID. And as for what do we want to update, we can say we want to set archived to be true. And that's it. After this runs, it's going to refresh all the other data on the page by default. So let's go ahead and save that, and we can test this out. We can look at some other integration types. We can also query REST APIs. For instance, let's add a new data fetch here. And this time, we're going to create a generic HTTP integration. We're going to query the dummy JSON API, and its API base URL is dummyjson.com. And we can reference the actual site here to see what are the endpoints available. But let's say we wanted to query the products. So we'll issue a GET request against the products. And you can explore the data that's returned from the right preview here. Now let's query a relational database. For this example, we're going to use RNA Central, which is a public Postgres database. And I'm going to go ahead and add another data fetch here. We're going to pick Postgres this time. And for the connection string, I'm going to copy this and paste it in. Now we can fetch rows using this no-code builder of queries where we can specify the table that we want and specify some filters, or we can actually write custom SQL as well. And this lets us perform more complex joins, etc. So for instance, I'm going to select the first 100 rows from the xref table, and I'll go ahead and save this. And that's it. That's how you can integrate your app with various databases and APIs. One of the most powerful aspects of these data and backend operations that we've seen so far is how they integrate with authentication and permissions. And we'll cover that in a separate video.